Good evening everybody, welcome back to One Hub Racing. This is the Pinnacle tier and we are here at the Singapore Grand Prix at the Marina Bay Street Circuit. My name is Kieran McGinley and joining me in the commentary box, as always, is John Worth. John, how are you tonight?
Yeah, evening Kieran, evening everybody, and really good, thank you, and looking forward to seeing this qualifying session here at Singapore.
Now obviously Singapore is one of the toughest races on the calendar. It's one of the longest as well, as Odoms has been saying in the driver interviews. 50 plus minutes of racing. You've been pretty successful around here though, Jono. 3 wins, is it? On a 50-minute race?
Yeah, 3 wins here, and it's certainly a very, very demanding race. It's sort of mentally as much as anything else. It's such a long race, as you say, on the walls line in the circuit. You cannot put a foot wrong. So I think my key to victory here was always just keep your concentration at all times, and just know the limits as well. Don't overdrive the car.
And this is a track that's had, in real life, a 100% safety car record ever since its debut on the calendar in 2008. Although one of those is still a bit controversial, even to this day, Jono.
Yeah, absolutely, and yeah, as you say, safety cars, well, almost a certainty in real life, always certainty up till now. 2008 was the first Grand Prix, I think, as well. So that's a heck of a record of safety cars, so wouldn't be at all surprised if we don't see one at some point tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're riding on board with Pinnacle, and as we look at the standings, Jono, 92 points separate Samster from Pinnacle. If you're in Pinnacle's position, 92 points behind, how on earth do you motivate yourself towards the end of the season?
Well, yeah, it's difficult, but the pressure's off him, I guess, now. With that sort of a gap, I mean, you must think it's obviously a huge long shot. He's just got to go out there and enjoy the races and try and win as many as he possibly can. There's nothing else he can do but that.
Absolutely, as he makes his way around the final corner, we're going to go on board with a lap with Pinnacle then. Second place in the championship as he crosses the start-finish line to make his way down towards turn 1 then, braking just over the 100-metre board. Tricky corners this as you head in towards turn 3 as it tightens on entry. Widens on the exit, but watch the traction as we head through the slight kink of turn 4 and all the way to turn 5. Going over and beyond that curb on the exit, on the entry, sorry, as Pinnacle slams the wall on the left-hand side. This is definitely going to be a banker lap for him now as he makes his way through turn 6 with the DRS wide open, not changing up to 7th as he changes down the gears through turn 7. Obviously we saw Lewis Hamilton and Mark Webber make that contact all those years ago. Now heading into turn 8 and now coming towards that turn 9 just before the Singapore Sling, and obviously they flattened out the Singapore Sling some years ago now after some of the cars rode the curbs too much and headed straight into that wall in front of you. Now heading towards 11 and then through turn 12 as we make our way towards the Anderson Bridge. There it is, we're over it towards the hairpin of turn 13 where Felipe Massa locked up big style, still managed to make the move work though, heading into that hairpin. Now we're on the approach to sector number 3 as we head down towards turn 14, braking hard, locking up the tyres there. Pinnacle really attacking on this lap on the hypersoft tyres, heading our way now through turn 15 where the braking zone is for turn 16. Very easy to lock up, especially when you're on worn tyres. Now heading towards the 90-degree section, as I like to call it, through turn 18 underneath the stadium there through turn 19, and then we've got the quick right left-hander of 20 and 21 before making our way to the final couple of corners on the left-handers of turns 22 and 23, which Pinnacle is just going to cruise around, and that is a lap of Marina Bay Street Circuit.
Yeah, and good to watch a lap there on board with Pinnacle. Obviously he's one of the qualifying masters, I guess, in this tier. Plenty of pole positions already in his short time here. So yeah, he gave us a lap there, obviously a little bit scrappy and just a bit of a sighter, obviously lifted off there at the end. But yeah, I expect to see him somewhere near the front come the end.
Well, St Johnston there, 136.8. Jono, I guess it's now over to you to talk about some of the driver updates going into the Singapore Grand Prix.
Yeah, obviously St Johnston there, as you mentioned, he's set that 136.8, so puts him at the top there at the moment. He's come in place of Heskey time in the Red Bull for the remainder of the season. So we'll look out for him. And also Drew Medino there, he's in the Force India for the remainder of the season in place of Go Tony as well. So a couple of new drivers to keep an eye on tonight. And I believe we've got a replacement for Praga in the Williams as well, although he's not racing this evening, so we'll keep you updated on that next week.
Well, Matt FNG then, pole position for the moment, 135.4. I am surprised, Jono, that so many of the drivers have gone out onto the Hypersoft tyres. Matt FNG in the Ferrari, and then we've got GP1 Pete, who was Pepsi Gamer, but has now had that mid-season name change, and St Johnston there on the Hypersofts as well. But further down then, 4th to 9th now, all setting lap times on the soft tyres. And when it comes to the race, Jono, on these Hypersoft tyres, the best you're getting out of them is 4 or 5 laps. The ideal strategy is to start on the ultra softs, because then you can take them at least 9 laps. That's when the pit window opens for those ultra soft tyres, and then you can get to the end of the race on the soft tyres. If you're brave, you can try and get the Hypersofts to lap 6, but that's going to be a tough ask.
Yeah, absolutely, it is. And just to spice up that strategy a little bit, Kieran, I am hearing or seeing there in the chat that we have got some rain in the race as well, and heavy rain towards the end of the race. So that is going to throw a spanner in the works for all these drivers who've got their tyre strategies worked out.
Absolutely. Well, that might actually be a reason why some of the drivers could be going on to some softer tyres. I mean, obviously, as I remember it, the weather forecast is split into 5 segments. So at any point in that 5th segment then, it could rain. But actually, what that means is the track is going to be that wet. So we are going to see those full wet tyres in that 5th segment of the race. But it could start raining well before then, Jono.
Yeah, and that's going to be a daunting prospect for these drivers, isn't it? And could well affect, as you say, what they decide to do in qualifying. I'm still thinking if it's going to be dry at the beginning, those Hypersofts are still going to, they're not going to have enough durability, I don't think. But yeah, could affect what drivers do throughout the race. Obviously, planning for when the switch will eventually come to the intermediates and perhaps full wet tyres.
Well, White Fountain was in the press conference. Oh no, last time out. Never mind them. But it was Matt F&G in the press conference this time around. Odem's the strong questioner, as he is, was talking about the second driver roles. You know, what do Rubens Barrichello and all these other drivers he listed all have in common? Unfortunately, though, he asked the question to Matt Wilkinson, and that's not Matt F&G, so he didn't answer the question.
Yeah, and who can blame him as well? You know, Odem's likes to rib people a little bit, but yeah, he was caught out there, wasn't he? Well and truly, and Matt took full advantage as well. So good on him, I say.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the pre-race interviews, TK there, lots of the drivers being asked Singapore or Monaco, which track is better? You got TK saying definitely Singapore, Monaco is terrible for me. White Fountain screaming Monaco. Scorpion was saying it's Monaco for me, I feel much faster around there when I'm in my groove. On the other hand, Singapore is better for overtaking. Lukey said Singapore easily. It's easier to not hit the walls at Singapore. I'll raise a question with you, Jono. I mean, it might be a little bit biased since you have won here 3 times.
Yeah, I personally really like both circuits, but I always find this one more difficult to get really competitive in. I think because it's such a long lap and there's so many corners, it's just very, very easy to make a mistake, and to hook up a perfect lap is very, very difficult. At Monaco, I think if you put the time in, you can really, really nail the braking zones, and I always felt slightly more comfortable there, but as you say here, slightly wider circuit, I guess, so at least you've got a bit more margin for error.
Samster then on a flying lap on the soft tyres, and this is sort of maybe what I was expecting. We've got about 8 minutes left in the session, so obviously there's plenty of time for that ultra soft run. When rain is forecast, Jono, but it's not at the beginning of the race, it's not a full wet race, how do you set up your car in qualifying? Do you prioritise the dry and try and get away before the rain comes, or do you go for a wet setup and hope the rain comes early on?
It's a coin. It's very, very difficult to know, isn't it? It's very difficult. I think I'd probably lean with the dry setup if the opening part of the race is going to be dry, and then it does obviously allow you to be higher up the grid in qualifying as well. But we may well see the drivers making a few compromises to set up for the rain here and there.
Well, Samster then still on his flying lap as he heads towards turn 14. A very good evening to everybody joining us in the stream. Great to have you on board for this, but such a big gap at the top though between Samster and Donkel. And as Odems was picking out the driver to watch for tonight, it is actually Donkel. As Odems says, he was unstoppable 2 weeks ago, but he hasn't scored a point since.
Yeah, he went on that run of almost looking unbeatable, didn't he? And we were saying, has he got any weaknesses? Because qualifying was always fantastic, and he had the race pace as well. But it all come a bit unravelled with a couple of non-point scoring finishes. The wet weather seemed to do for him at Spa, didn't it? He just didn't seem competitive in the wet, and then obviously the DNF at Monza last time out as well. And that was after his championship rival Sam was on the back of the grid as well at Monza, so that was a real double whammy for Donkel. So he really, for the championship's sake, he has to bounce back here at Singapore.
Absolutely. Sadie, I believe that's called in the chat. I'm not sure which car you're in, Sadie, but that's a DRS failure, so we'll have to look out and see which car's DRS doesn't open in qualifying. But that must be so frustrating when you're in qualifying, you need all that speed, and the DRS just doesn't work as Donkel goes up to 4th place on those soft tyres. As we see Samster, they're down in 7th place, but I don't think that's a representative lap time.
No, I don't think so. It's just a bank lap in there, and he is on the soft tyre, Sam, as well. But yeah, as you mentioned, DRS failure in qualifying, super frustrating. In the race you can live with it, I guess, but in qualifying you are just giving up heaps of lap time, a free lap time when not having DRS active. So yeah, here's hoping it gets itself fixed before the end of the session.
Marley then the 135.1, that's 0.3 faster than FNG on harder tyres, so good lap time from Marley, and I wonder if we're going to see quicker than that in this session. Are we going to dip into the 134s in this one?
Yeah, and this is going to be the race where we see Marley come alive as well. He's been here for a couple of races now and came in, people were expecting pretty big things, but it hasn't really worked out that way so far. So good lap time from him obviously at the moment, and yeah, will this be the race where he cements his spot in this tier?
And Farth, of course, we always seem to talk about him. Can he bounce back at Singapore? That's the main thing. With no reflow tonight, it's the sole responsibility to score those points for Mercedes.
Yeah, absolutely is. But yeah, he sat there in the pit lane, as we see very often in qualifying, with just 5 minutes remaining. So once again, no bank lap in for Farth, and it's such a difficult track, this one, probably one of the worst of any, to just come out and try and set a lap time cold. So it'll be very, very difficult for Farth, I think, to come out in the last few minutes and actually get a good competitive lap time in.
Peter in the chat says, am I going to get some points? Well, there's only one way to find out, Peter. We've got 31 laps of the Singapore Grand Prix, plenty of time to find out. Yeah,
definitely. You've got the pace, Pete, so yeah, let's hope that the connection holds out and we see yeah, the McLaren reach the finish line at least, and hopefully in the points.
A Scorpion there, 5th place on some ultra soft tyres. That's the best lap time he's set so far on those tyres. And those yellow flags you can see, unless they're major incidents, are just people getting out of the way of people on fast laps. And around a track like Singapore, street circuit is always difficult to try and get out of the way without destroying your own tyres, Jono.
Yeah, the street circuit is always difficult in qualifying. At least you've got a long lap here, so the drivers can spread themselves out a little bit, unlike Monaco, where everyone seems to be on the same piece of circuit at the end of quali. But yeah, it can still prove difficult, and we know we're crucial with tyre temperatures and everything here. Getting a clean lap in is crucial.
Lukey, how do you think he's progressing so far this season, Jono? I think in the second half of the season he's really come alive. As actually, yeah, Jono, sorry to interrupt you. Am I seeing rain? I am seeing rain. It is raining at the end of qualifying here. Well, this is a huge spanner into the works now.
Absolutely, this will make it difficult. They'll still have good grip at the moment, but it won't take long for those tyre temperatures to drop and for the grip to fall away. And yeah, that's just more bad news for Farth, isn't it? Who's sat in the pits there, seeing the rain fall down out of his garage.
Let's bring it back to Lukey then. Just before I interrupted you, he seems to have come alive in the second half of the season.
Yeah, I think he's one of the form couple of drivers, you'd have to say, especially the last couple of races. At Monza last week, I think, where did he finish in the end? It was 7th, but he was battling, for higher than that until there was a few little incidents and collisions. But yeah, he's looking really, really strong. He's 8th in the championship at the moment on 52 points, but there's a few drivers ahead of him who I think he'll be eyeing up to finish ahead of by the end of the season.
Well, he's on the ultra soft tyres at probably the best time to be selling them. sort of the best time to set it is when it's absolutely dry, there's no rain. The second best time to set a lap time is now.
Yeah, this will be absolutely crucial for Lukey now, and for all the drivers who are out and about to start a lap or on a lap. You know, this will probably be the best chance they get to improve on their lap time, so it's going to be now or never.
This seems to be a curse, Jono. Whenever you and I step into the commentary box for qualifying, it seems to always rain towards the end of the session.
Yeah, I feel like maybe I'm to blame for, you know, I was wishing rain on us, wasn't I, earlier in the season after we had quite a few dry races in a row. And yeah, ever since then we seem to get thrown out with these odd periods of rain at the end of qualifying sessions.
And Lukey there, 1:37.259. He shaved a lot of time off there, but he's 9/1000th of a second from Samster. And Samster's actually retired from the session. He's down in P11. Donkel's in P6. This is the perfect time for someone like Pete here to grab pole position. He's on the ultra soft tyres, but I wonder here that it is drizzling, and at a track like Singapore with a high track temperature, it's going to take a lot. Oh, as he hits the wall there, he's going to keep going.
Yeah.
It's going to take a lot for the track to actually get soaking wet, but the rain's getting heavier.
Yeah, it is, and Pete sliding into the wall there and locking up. I think perhaps the grip's starting to drift away, and I think, yeah, these guys who've retired have probably done so because they think there is no further chance to improve. But very interesting to see Sam down there in 11th, although as we saw last week at Monza, you know, it doesn't stop him from fighting his way towards the front of the grid, does it?
As it stands, Marley is on pole position with a 1:35.1. Pete, Jaw are in good positions to try and take that away. Lukey's obviously set his lap. Farth is out on track as he makes his way through 22 and 23. You can see the back end slide there. How much grip there isn't now. But Farth has gone out on a set of hyper soft tyres. It's now or never for him. And, well, Farth getting into the top 10. We need some betting people in here. There needs to be some odds here. But Marley then, rounding up, he's going to come towards the final two corners, and he's going to go for it. Our Farth is out then. I wasn't riding on board with him at the time because I was watching Marley then really lose the back end out of the final corner, but he's managed to keep it in check. He really wants to extend his lead. Here comes Pete around the final two corners. What can he do then? Oh, he goes off completely wide, and Pete is off at the final corner, and he's not going to have a chance to get pole position. In fact, everybody is into the pits now, and with only a couple of seconds remaining, it's pretty much guaranteed Marley is on pole position for the Singapore Grand Prix.
Yeah, fantastic. He delivered the good try, and yeah, he's reaping the rewards. He's going again anyway on the hypers. Just for the fun of it, I think. But as you say, it's going to be a front row start for the Renault.
Absolutely. I wonder if he's going to complete this lap. If he doesn't, he'll be starting on the ultra soft tyres. If he goes quicker on these tyres, he's going to start on the hyper soft. He's on pole position. Unless he's not watching the stream, he doesn't know that no one else is out there. Surely as he taps the wall out of Anderson Bridge there towards turn 13. And if he hasn't got damage there, I'll be absolutely amazed.
Yeah, and he's sliding around. This is going to be a slower lap anyway. I think he'd know that from his Delta time as well. So perhaps he just wants to complete the lap anyway. But yeah, if I was him, I think I'd be pretty happy starting on pole on those on the ultra soft, so the more durable tyre.
And unlike Pete, who's in the chat there saying starting on the hyper softs. And that's absolutely right, but he's got Matt ahead of him who's also in the same scenario. Luke in the chat saying, get in Marley, teammate is on pole position. That's absolutely right, and Marley here, I believe, has backed off completely from his lap. Is he going to come into the pits? Yes, he is. As he comes into the pits, DRS is disabled, and that is going to do it then. Marley on pole position for the Singapore Grand Prix.
Wow, yeah, and another tricky session there for all these drivers, but Marley is he's come out on top, so he'll be delighted, and obviously Lukey delighted for him as well. And the Renault team really, as we mentioned before, they are finding their feet as we go into the final third of the season.
Absolutely, and it is great to see two teammates get on so well. And as it stands then, Marley on pole position, Matt F&G in second, Pete in third, Scorpion in fourth, Brumadinho fifth, Donkel in sixth, starting on those soft tyres, remember, watch out for him in the race. Jorah in seventh, White Fountain in eighth, St Johnston ninth, TK in 10th, Samster sounding outside of the top 10 with Lukey in 12th, Chopper 13th, and Farth did not set a time in that session. And, well, his job has got a lot tougher for the Singapore Grand Prix.
Yeah, it's going to be a long race, so let's see. I don't expect Sam to take too many risks early on. I know it's the big chance to gain positions, but a long race and with the weather change as well, I think getting the pit stops obviously right for the tyre changes are going to be crucial. So I don't expect to see Sam making massive risky moves early on. I think he's too clever a driver for that.
Well, we shall see. We have 31 laps that await us, and at some point, heavy rain. Jono, you've been wanting rain pretty much every single race, and that's exactly what you've got now.
Yeah, definitely, and as a spectator, I think this is this setup fantastic, isn't it? Because we're going to see the cars at their quickest in the dry, obviously, to start with, and then we're going to have to see the drivers judge those those pit stops just right. And with it being such a long lap here, if you get it wrong by one lap either side, you can be absolutely left floundering. So it's going to be absolutely crucial, and it could well decide, I think, who comes out eventual winner.
Absolutely, and lots of strategies going on for this race. It kind of leads me to believe that Donkel and Samster have qualified on the soft tyre, or at least wanting to start on the soft tyre, the hardest possible compound, to try and only make one stop, and that's when it rains.
Yeah, definitely. I think, if you're on that soft tyre, you can just hopefully take them a long way and wait for the rain to come. Obviously, I guess those in the worst position are at the top few, at least, is Matt F&G and Pete there, as we saw in the chat, who are on the hyper soft, so we know they are going to struggle quite early on, so they're definitely going to have to make one pit stop, you'd imagine, before we see any rain start to fall.
Well, keep an eye on those skies then. I know we will, as Marley will lead them now down this boulevard then towards turn 6, and you can see all the drivers trying to warm up their tyres, but Matt, F&G and Pete are in an interesting situation. Of course, they can try and put some heat into the tyres, but of course, too much heat into the tyres and they might just overheat and wheel spin off the line. As soon as you wheel spin on the hypersofts, then you're in a world of trouble. So it's really finding that sweet spot of how warm do you want the tyres.
Yeah, definitely, and you'd hope by this point of the season, they'd have that sort of thing nailed, but the hypersoft we don't run very often, so it's a difficult tyre to manage. If they do it right, they should be very quick for the first couple of laps, so Marley will have his mirrors full perhaps, holding them back initially, and if he can weather that storm for the first few laps, then he should be sitting pretty. Quick mention for Brumadino there as well, our new driver in 5th, so good qualifying session from him on his debut.
Absolutely. Donkel in P6 then, starting on the soft tyre. The only two other drivers that join him are Chopper and Farr. Meanwhile though, Samster, who tried to qualify on some soft tyres before the rain started to come down, starting on some ultra soft tyres. Now under normal conditions then, as Donkel's actually to the wall there coming out of turn 14, that's not a good look for the McLaren driver. If everything goes to plan, we have anyone starting on the ultra softs. The pit window opens on lap 9 to 11 to make the one stop to go onto some soft tyres. And anyone starting on the soft tyres can take their tyres all the way to lap 19. That's when their pit window opens, lap 19 to 21. But with rain assumingly on the way, but towards the end of the race, as Luke in the chat is saying, no rain expected soon. So maybe 2 ultra soft stints might be the answer.
Yeah, that could well be the way to go, couldn't it? If we're not going to get rain towards the end, that could be the quickest way to go about it. But there's only one way to find out, and we're about to see what happens when we get the lights on screen for you very shortly.
Well, we're just waiting for the last of the drivers to line up onto the grid. We're moments away from the beginning of the Singapore Grand Prix. 31 laps. We're in the box for 50 plus minutes for this race as the 5 red lights come on at Marina Bay. Round 15 is underway and instantly White Fountain has got a drive-through penalty for the jump start. But what are the starts like as we head down towards turn 1? And it looks like the Ferrari and the Renault there making contact going through turn 2. It forces Marley to go off the track then. But Matt F&G and Marley still battling as we head our way through the kink of 4. And now down towards turn 5. Looks like all the drivers have got a clean start so far and we've made our way through. Now turning towards turn 6 and that is Lukey there battling away with Chopper as there's a little bit of a contact contact going on there. Not sure what's going on either screen. Donkul then has fallen down the field. He's down to 10th place, and that's those soft tyres. They're not warming up. They're not up to temperature. Samster, meanwhile, up to P7, and Matt FNG then trying to battle away with Pete then as we come around turn 9 as we head towards the old Singapore Sling for the first time. Marley takes back the lead, but have a look at Bruma as we head towards turn 10. He was having a look up the inside of Matt FNG then for P3. You've got Donkul who's down to P9. It's a terrible start for Donkul. Samster's actually got ahead of him there, so it's a really bad start then as we head towards turn 13 then. And as you can see, St Johnston trying to get the better exit and try and get past Donkul. The more positions Donkul loses now, the worse it's going to get for him, as he is on those soft tyres. They're going to take a couple of laps to warm up properly, and it's going to be a long race for Donkul if this is going to be his race. Meanwhile then, at the front, Marley leads the way from Pete, Matt FNG, your top three so far as we head underneath the stadium for the first time. And Donkul, who's right on the back of Scorpion, as you can see, he's already underfueled the car, and that Scorpion hitting the wall there, and he's lost a bit of front wing. He's having to miss out on turn 21, and that could be him into the pits then, as Bruma, I believe that is coming into the pits. Is it Bruma? I think no, White Fountain into the pits. He's got to serve his drive-through penalty. He's doing that now. At the end of lap 1 though, Marley leads from Pete, Matt FNG, Bruma, Jaw, Samster, Donkul, St Johnston, TK, Chopper, Lukey, Farth, White Fountain and Scorpion.
Yeah, and remarkably clean open lap, I guess, for Singapore. Marley had to fight very, very hard to hold on to that top spot. Matt FNG getting past him momentarily, but then getting squeezed out, and he eventually dropped behind Pete. But yeah, perhaps he has weathered the storm. He's now got 1.5 second gap, so perhaps those ultra softs already struggling to hang on. Big loser, obviously, White Fountain with that jump start. Real shame for him. And Scorpion, I did see some front wing fly off his car earlier on in the lap, and then, as you say, hit the wall. Made another mistake and hit the wall, and so he's had to make a pit stop as well. So yeah, White Fountain and Scorpion off the back of the field, but all the rest still well and truly in the fight.
Yeah, Marley 1.9 seconds in the lead now. Pete is under pressure from Matt FNG and Bruma here. I wonder what just trying to stay behind, maybe see how the battle develops, as we see Chopper and Lukey there going side by side. I think they're looking at different things on the screens. That's such a shame, because that could be such a good battle between them. Here comes TK up the inside into turn 14 then, and well, it's a little bit of an interesting line from the Renault there. Again, that's not what they're seeing on both their screens then, as the Haas of TK trying to go round St Johnston, and he does. TK then up a position to P8.
Yeah, making his way
St Johnston!
Oh, there's a Red Bull in the wall.
Yeah, Red Bull into the wall, as is the Toro Rosso, and Chopper is out! Chopper is out of the race! Coming around in towards turn 19, that was, as Marley sets the fastest lap, and I think that's a case of two people seeing two different things on their screens. So unfortunate.
Yeah, that's a real shame for Chopper. I think he was a victim there of what happened to St Johnston by the look of it, from what I could just catch on my view. But yeah, shame for Chopper, and he's out of the race.
Well, he becomes our first retirement there. A 100% safety car record here at Singapore. No safety car as of yet. Here's Brumadinho, maybe having a look up the inside of Matt FNG as we head down towards turn 7. Not quite happening then, as all those years ago when we saw Lewis Hamilton and Mark Webber clash at turn number 7. I won't say how many tears were shed that day, but it was quite a few. Brumadinho then heading now down towards the old Singapore Sling, really trying to pile the pressure onto Matt FNG. Of course, Bruma has the ultra soft tyres. All he's got to do is stay behind for maybe another lap, and those hyper soft tyres are going to start feeling the pinch, as we've got Donkul out of the race. Donkul's out. Now, where on earth is that? We're going to run aboard. Oh, he's binned it on the exit of, I believe that's turn 12. He's lost it there, and Donkul, second place in the championship, 91 points behind, is now out of the race, and this surely has to be an open goal for Samster to score as many points as possible.
Yeah, what a disaster, and another race, another DNF for Donkul. It's all unraveling for him, isn't it? And with Sam down in 11th as well, it was an opportunity here today. But all got wrong for him once again. But also, Kieran, 6 second gap now Marley's got there at the front of the field.
Absolutely, as Matt F&G comes into the pits, he's had enough of those hyper soft tyres, and I don't blame him. He's managed to make them last 3 laps. I wasn't really expecting any more than that, but Brumadinho there now up to P2. We've got Jaw in 3rd place. In fact, the 2 Haas's are 3rd and 4th. Great from them. And Lukey is up to P5. What a great start from Lukey. He started 12th place in this race, now up to 5th. And now he's putting some pressure on the Haas then. I'll tell you what, it might be quite early to say, but the Renaults look really good here at the Singapore Grand Prix. And here comes Lukey then, setting up a move through turn 6 as he goes up to 8th gear, maybe to save a little bit of fuel. Up the inside as he goes through turn 7. That's a great move from Lukey. He's now up to 4th place.
Yeah, great move. And as you say, both Renaults absolutely on a charge. And yeah, looking really good for them, isn't it? And we've already seen 6 drivers make a pit stop then in this race, including Samster, who I didn't notice at the time. He's made a stop as well, which is why he's still down in 10th place. We've already lost 2 drivers and 6 pit stops on lap 4.
Good battle here between Pete and Matt F&G, and it looks like Pete has got the move done on Matt F&G, who seems to be falling down the field. He has made a stop though, of course, as he now rejoins in 8th place. Still ahead of his teammate though, but making those soft tyres last, it all depends on when that rain falls down.
Yeah, if it's going to be at the end of the race, then it may well not be a benefit if everybody's got to stop, which is what we're expecting. But yeah, those in the soft tyres obviously just looking to take them a long way. So Matt F&G now will be settling in and expecting a long stint ahead of him.
Well, Marley leads the way as we enter the 5th lap of the Singapore Grand Prix. Brumadinho on his debut in 2nd place. Lukey there has now made the move on Jaw down the home straight. He's now up to 3rd place and he's only 6.3 behind Brumadinho. I tell you what, with this pace, this could be a chance for Renault 1-2. It might be very early on in saying that, but both these drivers, both the Renault drivers, have got phenomenal pace.
Yeah, on pace at least, yeah. Absolutely looking strong for that. And look at Lukey just streaking away from Jaw like he's standing still in that half. So real pace in that car from Lukey at the moment. And yeah, we'll keep an eye on that gap and see if he can bring it down. Bring down that gap to P2.
Pete then trying to get his way from Matt F&G, but it hasn't quite worked because Matt is still in DRS range here, and obviously he's now closing that gap as we head down towards turn 7. The gap is now 0.7 of a second, and you can see Matt very slowly closing on that gap. Remember, these soft tyres are the hardest compound available at this race. We skip 1 compound, so we go hypers to ultras, skip 1 to the soft tyres. So these tyres do take a lap or 2 to warm up properly, and you can see now, you can see the benefits of that tyre warming up lap, if you like. Some people call it an out lap. I call it the tyre warming up lap. That's just how it goes. But after that lap, you can see now Matt closing in that gap, Jono.
Yeah, he is bringing that gap down, isn't he? And as you say, warming up tyres, especially here, you can't afford to make a mistake. So you've got to give them that time to bed in. But the drivers will really notice the lack of grip as well on these soft tyres. As you say, with that stepping compounds, they've just come from the hyper soft tyre in Matt's case, and then bolted on a set of softs. So yeah, you suddenly think, wow, I've got no front end on this car. So take him a lap or 2 as well to just get used to where the limits are on these harder compound of tyre.
Absolutely, as he flies through turn number 23. You can see there, Pete seems to do really well. The mechanical grip on that McLaren seems to be really good for those 90-degree corners. Along the straights then, Matt seems to be closing up the gap. He's under a lot of pressure from Odems, or that number 2 status at the moment. The gap between 0.4 seconds.
Yeah, definitely. It's not very often we see the 2 Ferraris in 8th and 10th places. Obviously a long way to go in this race, but we used to see them battling up there in the top 4 or 5. So yeah, a lot of work to be done by them at the moment. And White Fountain up into 6th as well. Obviously he's had to serve that drive-through. So he's still on his original set of tyres. But yeah, he's made his way from the back of the field back up into 6th place.
Farth then getting 3-second time penalty, battling away with St Johnston. This is for P11. You can see St Johnston there doing his best to try and defend from the Mercedes driver as we head through turn 9. Farth is going to try the cut back here as there's a couple of trees blocking the helicopter view, but Farth seemed to have a good run. Then St Johnston had a better run as Farth losing that back end through the old Singapore sling. That's the Red Bull trying to find a way up the inside, but Farth gets the move done before the Anderson Bridge. He's up to P11.
Yeah, very close there, and St Johnston almost got his front wing up against the Mercedes almost, but no damage, and yeah, both able to continue. Bath up to 11th, as you say, so yeah, you'll have your sights set on Sam now, but quite a long way up the road.
Yeah, 14.5 seconds, that gap between himself and Samster. He's on ultra soft tyres though, but they'll only last around about 9 laps, so he's got about 7 laps of life in them, 14.7. You do the maths.
St Johnston's binned it.
Oh, St Johnston out of the race then in his debut, and it's a virtual safety car that's been deployed. So all the cars go onto the same bit of Sky Electric's track. They have to follow the delta. If they exceed that delta for a certain amount of time, they will be getting a penalty. So it's all about keeping that delta green and keeping those tyres warm as well. Keep an eye on that top left-hand corner. The end of the virtual safety car is told by the yellow box there saying sector 1, 2 and 3 before briefly disappearing. And that's will be going green flag racing again.
Yeah, and if you get this right, you can gain a little bit on your rival if you judge it right and get back up to racing speed. You know, quicker than the guy ahead of you. There is a slight advantage to be gained, so we'll keep an eye on it, and obviously keep an eye on those deltas as well. And several times this season, penalties awarded to drivers who just overstepped it a little bit. So important to make sure it's green at all times.
Virtual safety car still deployed then. But you'll get a clue when all the drivers sort of... There we go. I was just about to say all the drivers will turn up their engines, turn up their ERS. They've been harvesting. And Brumadinho there seemed to have gained a lot of time on Marley there. On the restart, the gap was 12 seconds. It's now down to 8.9. So Brumadinho's got that restart perfectly there. Donkall, by the way, in the chat saying a yellow front wing, and he just simply understeered into the wall. So a terrible way to head out of the Grand Prix, and we'll have to wait and see. Keep an eye on how big the points gap will be going into the next race.
Yeah, absolutely. If Sam can pull some decent points out of this, we can well see the gap go up above the 100-point mark. I'm sure that'll be on Sam's mind as well. He won't be taking too many risks here at all, I don't think. But yeah, shame for Donkall. Wing damage, you know, it's not good at the best times on a track like this. Just makes making mistakes so easy, and yeah, unfortunately for him, he found the wall.
Here comes TK then, trying to make a move on his teammate. Oh, they make contact! TK makes contact with his teammate, Jaw. Oh, that I don't want to be in the debrief room for that one, but TK has found a way through, and Jaw now down to P5.
Yeah, that looked all a little bit messy, didn't it? In the end, I think Jaw just sort of dived out of his way. Yeah, a bit surprised about that, but yeah, TK makes his way through, so the Haas drivers will continue as Bath has retired from the session as well, by the look of it. So we're left with 10 runners already on lap 8 of the race, so points on the cards for anybody who can make it to the end from here.
Absolutely. 4 drivers down, we still have 10 in the running. You can see there's still bits of debris left from Donkall's crash. You would have thought under the virtual safety car, at least one marshal would have run across the track to pick that debris up, but there you go.
Yeah, you would have thought so. Obviously, they didn't spot it, so yeah, the drivers will have to do their best to avoid that for the time being.
Well, Pete under pressure then from Matt FNG. We've also got Scorpion under pressure from Samster. Scorpion's Ultrasofts coming to the end of their life as sort of the pit window is open on this lap, so you could be seeing some of the drivers pitting in on this lap, depending on how their tyres are doing, what they're thinking. Marley having a good lead at the top. 9.5 seconds separates him and Brumadinho. Just how impressed are you with Brumadinho's debut? 2nd place right now.
Yeah, well, I don't want to commentate a cursing, so I won't say too much, but obviously I think he'd be pretty happy, won't he, to be on lap 9 of the race. First race in, and to find himself in 2nd place, so I'm sure he'll be pretty happy with how it's gone so far. But as we keep saying, that it is just the case at this track. There's a long way to go, and it really isn't over until you've got the finish line at the end.
Well, Matt FNG still piling on the pressure on Pete here, and these seem to be 2 drivers who seem to match each other for pace at exactly the same track. The only problem is one car seems to be good through the corners, the other seems to be good on the straight, and Singapore has plenty of those in abundance.
Yeah, it's just balancing out, isn't it? They're just obviously both pushing, and yeah, the gap's staying pretty much dead static, isn't it? All you'd say is that Matt FNG has got almost full ERS energy available, so definitely not pushing too hard on the engine modes at the moment. So perhaps Pete having to fight a little harder or push a little harder at the moment to maintain that gap. But yeah, as it stands, Matt, he's in that DRS and slipstream zone, but not able to get anywhere near close enough to make a move at the moment.
Well, Samster here, championship leader, trying to put some pressure now on Scorpion as they head through 17 now. And Samster taps the wall. Yeah, have a look at the right side of that front wing, see if there's any little bits of damage there. If he hasn't got damage, he's a very, very lucky boy there, and I don't think he has because he's still going through. We've got drivers into the pits then, Lukey and TK into the pits for a scheduled stop. And they're going to put on some soft tyres. The Samster picks up a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings, assuming they are track limit warnings. And here comes Samster. Does he have a look up the inside? He did think about it, but backed out of the move then as we head towards turn 3. Then closest battle on the track is this one. The battle for now, 7th place. Scorpion trying to defend on 8-lap-old ultra soft tyres. And Samster's tyres are not even halfway through their life yet as we come towards the slight kink of turn 6. Into the DRS zone, Scorpion trying to do his best to defend, shimmying to the left-hand side, trying to take the inside line to defend, and it's going to put Samster on the outside of turn 7, but the inside for turn number 8, there's a little bit of contact between the Ferrari and the Toro Rosso as they head towards turn 9, and you can see Scorpion still has the inside line, and Samster just couldn't quite keep it on the outside there for the cutback, and Scorpion keeps a hold of his 7th place.
Yeah, well defended there by Scorpion as well. I was holding my breath through turn 8 because we've seen in previous seasons many cars get squeezed out and into the wall when going side by side through that corner. But they give each other just enough space, and yeah, Sam has to slot back behind, for another lap. But you feel if Sam keeps it clean, the pass will come eventually, if only because those ultra soft tyres on Scorpion, they will die off. He's done 8 laps on those now, so they will start fading away quite quickly from here, and Sam should have superior grip if Scorpion doesn't pit beforehand.
Marley and Brumadinho into the pits. They've both put on a set of soft tyres, which under normal conditions will get you to the end of the race. Jaw is also in, so I wonder if White Fountain here is going to take the lead of the race. It will be very close between himself and Marley, but no, Marley will keep a hold of the lead. And I wonder if Marley's trying to go for a grand slam here. Pole position, and every lap led. So far, he's on his way. He just needs to get that fastest lap at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. It's well doable for him, you would think. And White Fountains, I can see some marking up on his ultra softs as well. So they're definitely past their best. So yeah, I expect White Fountain to come into the pits in the next lap or so.
Matt FNG still putting on the pressure on that McLaren. Meanwhile, Brumadinho has rejoined in front of Scorpion, and that is not good news for Samster at all, because it means that Samster's lost time overall, and he will not be wanting that at all. Interesting though, Brumadinho, who was second, about 9 seconds back, is down now 4 places on Marley.
Yeah, he is. He's on those fresh tyres. Obviously, the guys ahead of him are, well, White Fountain will be due to stop soon, won't he? But yeah, Pete and Matt FNG obviously on their softs will be going quite a bit longer yet, or they'll plan to anyway. Bruma's got now softs on that will get him till the end of the race, or until the rain comes, whichever comes, if that does happen. So he's just got to settle in now, make sure he doesn't get any wing damage, and he knows those tyres will take him as far as they need to take him.
White Fountain under huge pressure here from Pete and Matt FNG. As I say that, White Fountain comes straight into the pits. Doesn't want to be under that sort of pressure. And that means Pete and Matt FNG leap up to P2 and P3 then. White Fountain pitting in just as the pit window closed there on lap number 11. The furthest you could probably take those tyres before they completely fall apart. And Scorpion here is going to risk it. He's going to go past the pit window.
Yeah, he does, and I think he'll struggle on this lap when he with the tyres. We just saw White Fountain; he lost quite a lot of time on his in lap there. So yeah, White Fountain pushing those tyres a long way, but you can see the marking up again on his tyres now. So yeah, he's going to be coming in the next lap or so.
Well, he's got a bit of pressure from Samster behind him, and Samster will be wanting to try and make this move as soon as possible because the ultra soft tyres of Scorpion are only going to get worse. Meanwhile then, Pete is still under pressure from the Ferrari of Matt FNG, and it's quite interesting really because both Ferraris are pretty much on the same age of tyres, they're on the same compound, and yet Matt FNG here is having the better race. I mean, he's really lashed back out those Odems comments.
Yeah, he has. I mean, Odems made those comments, didn't he, on the back of Matt FNG's maiden victory as well last time out. So yeah, he's on a high obviously from last week at Monza, Matt, and he's on the podium at the moment as things stand as well. So yeah, perhaps he's got the edge on his teammates, you know, in the last couple of races. But you know, Sam has still got plenty of opportunity yet to come back at Matt, and I think if necessary, Matt would even be willing to give up a podium position for Sam if it helped him in the championship.
Well, I think he'll be under the impression that Sam's got to get there first because he is down in P6 and he's actually lost time to Scorpion on that lap, so he's made a mistake on that lap. At the moment, P6, well, it would be enough to extend the championship lead, but he knows full well that he needs to be taking advantage of a situation like this.
Yeah, absolutely, and you would expect now, you know, they're on almost equal life tyres, Scorpion and Sam, but obviously Scorpion on the ultra soft tyre, so he's 2 compounds softer, so they've got to be badly warm by now, but yeah, Sam's still struggling to stay with him, you have to say, and by no means harassing him for the position at all.
It is that decision. When does the rain come? I wonder if Scorpion is going to pit in. Will he put on a set of ultra softs and try and run them to when the rain falls? Now, when the rain falls, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be the time to put on those tyres. They could come so late on into the race that everybody's just going to stay on the slick tyres to the end.
Well, yeah, absolutely. If they're predicting around the 45-minute mark, even perhaps, then yeah, that's going to just make perhaps a tricky final few laps to the race, and we won't actually see any wet tyre running. Obviously, we'll wait and see what happens, but I think the drivers have just got to run their optimum dry tyre strategy at the moment. Try not to think about what might happen towards the end. Just make sure you do the right thing now, and yeah, run the correct tyres. You know, until the end of the race, be on the right tyre at the right time.
Scorpion has done an amazing job though on these ultra soft tyres, 11 lap old ultra softs that will soon turn to 12, and he's going to do another lap on them. So
wow.
Well, fair play to Scorpion. He's staying out there on those ultra softs, keeping them in check for sure, and I wonder if he is going to go for those ultra soft tyres. I'm just going to check. Oh, he has stopped. Oh, that's why, because they're fresh ultra softs, so that's why he's able to take them a little bit further. So he must have stopped very early on then.
He had wing damage.
So that'll be why then. So that's why he's able to keep those ultra softs in good check then, because he's actually already stopped. So has he used both compounds of dry tyre? So because he could go onto a set of ultra softs once again. Yeah,
we'll have to wait and see what he decides to do, and we need to keep an eye on Brumadinho as well, because he's closing in rapidly on the back of Matt. He's now less than half a second behind him.
Absolutely, as we head towards the old Singapore Sling now, in towards turn 11, right on his rear wing now, and Matt seems to have fallen away from Pete. 1.7 is the gap between them as we head across the Anderson Bridge, now down towards turn 13. You can see there Brumadinho locking up slightly as he headed in towards the braking zone. Didn't quite get the best exit out of turn 13, but he's still with the Ferrari as he head in towards turn 14 now. And the Force India here looks up for this 3-lap old soft tyres against 10-lap old soft tyres as we now head towards turn 16 through 17. You can see there Matt trying to use all the curb to try and get away from the Force India, but it's not working as we head underneath the stadium, now going through turn 19 as we head towards turn 20 and 21. You can see Matt just trying to get away from the Force India. It's not working though as we head towards 22 and 23, and you can see there Brumadinho has got much better cornering right now. Maybe not through the high speed section, but in the low speed section the mechanical grip is on the Force India's side as we head through 1, 2 and 3 for the 15th time this race. Marley still leads. 10 seconds is the gap between himself and Pete, and Brumadinho is battling away here for the last podium position. He's going to wait until the DRS zone. He's going to have plenty of it, plenty of slipstream as well as we head in towards towards turn number 6, into the rear wing, into the slipstream, a little bit of a tap behind maybe. But as Brumadinho makes his way down towards turn 7, is Matt FNG going to fight this? No, he's not. And Brumadinho gets the move done, and he's now up to 3rd place.
He is, and expecting to quickly hunt down Pete now in the McLaren as well, who's likely to be struggling similar to Matt, although Matt did fall off the back, didn't he, of the McLaren a bit in the last couple of laps, so perhaps the tyre wear just impacting the Ferrari driver a little bit more than it is Pete at the moment.
Jaw under pressure from the Sauber of White Fountain, and White Fountain here looking like he's got much better mechanical grip than Jaw has. Maybe set out the car to prioritise mechanical grip over everything else, and we've seen that actually in the low speed corners. Some of the cars just don't want to turn in, or they just pack in, but through the high speed corners they're really good. Yeah,
absolutely, and White Fountain to, I think he'll really want this. He'll really want to make progress. He'll be really frustrated, obviously, with the drive to find himself last of the 10 runners at the moment. So he'll back himself to be quicker than the guys ahead. But well, can he make his way through? That's a different matter altogether.
Yeah, this time he's not driving a Dacia or anything like that, as he said a couple of races ago in his press conference. But yeah, he's struggling at the moment, and I'm wondering, having a look at that right-hand side of the front wing, no, just look from a certain angle like it was damaged, but it looks intact to me.
Yeah, I think it's intact from what we can tell. Anyway, it's a bit tricky to see, but it looks like it's all good. So yeah, it'll be on the head for Jaw and to get into that 9th position.
Jumping on board with Scorpion then, who's still out there, 14 laps on his Ultra Softs. They are fresh Ultra Softs, that's how he's able to do it, but he's under pressure from Samster as we head down towards turn 7. Samster's looking for the way past, but he can't quite do it yet. As we head towards turn 8, the gap between himself and his teammate is 3.9, so it was less than it was before. He's slowly closing that gap, but he'll be able to close that gap a lot more if he could dispatch of this Toro Rosso, which he's having a difficult time of doing now as we head through the old Singapore Sling. This lovely helicopter camera angle showing us as they go through turn 12, over the Anderson Bridge, and then towards the hairpin of turn 13. Look at how close Samster's getting on the back of that Toro Rosso as we head out of turn 13 and up towards turn 14 now. And that's a heavy braking zone, a good overtaking opportunity if you can time it absolutely right. But well, Scorpion's still ahead.
He is, but yeah, Sam suddenly looks the quicker driver, doesn't he? Those Ultra Softs are finally starting to give up on Scorpion's car now, but he's driving well. He's hitting all the apexes at the moment, but Sam will be determined to get by now. Now he's actually losing time. He knows he can go quicker. He'll be starting to get a little bit frustrated, and he'll want to make his way through, but he's got to follow Scorpion for at least one more lap.
Yeah, you can see the dirty air he had there following Scorpion. He actually braked going into the last 2 corners, not confident in the grip, as you can see Lukey in the distance there in P7 and wanting to recover after his early stop, obviously on those ultra soft tyres, going on to the soft tyres, maybe trying to run them to the end. But as you can see, Samster on 14-lap-old soft tyres. Now remember, under normal circumstances, as we see a move now, Brumadinho off camera makes a move in towards turn 7, and he's got the move done on Pete. Up to 2nd place he goes, and that's a move that's been coming lap after lap. And Brumadinho now 14 seconds behind Marley, who we haven't really seen a lot of, Jono. But normally if you're not talking about the race leader, it's a good sign for him.
Yeah, definitely, and 14-second lead in 17 racing laps, so not far off a second a lap he's been pulling on these guys. So it's been a brilliant drive from him so far, and we've got 2 relatively new drivers this tier in 1st and 2nd place at the moment.
Absolutely. Well, Scorpion is doing his best to try and hold Samster back. Like I was saying, under normal conditions, the pit window for the soft tyres opens on lap 19. So the best you're getting out of those tyres is 20 laps. That means for Samster here, he's got 5 laps at best running on those soft tyres. So he's got to be careful about battling with Scorpion.
Yeah, he has. And he'll just be willing Scorpion to pit, won't he, just to release him. So he can unleash what pace he's got left in those soft tyres. But very neat and tidy from Scorpion, and hitting all his apexes. Like I said, he does a little jink now, but he continues around again, and as you say, the understeer that Sam gets to that final corner with the dirty air really hurts him, and he falls back then for the run down the pit straight.
And that is what is costing him down the pit straight. That is a DRS zone, remember. 2 DRS zones, one down the start finish straight, and we're coming up to one now. And Scorpion here is having to do his best, but he's defended the inside line. His exit's going to be compromised, and this is Samster's best chance to try and get Scorpion now as we head down towards turn 6. Samster's got the DRS, and well before the braking zone, Samster, at last, he says, grabs P5.
Yeah, indeed. It finally made it tell, didn't he? Just a much better line through that right-hander. Scorpion really committed to the inside, but then he that made him slow on the exit. Sam able to benefit and finally makes his way through, and I expect to see him put away pretty quickly now from the Toro Rosso driver.
Well, White Fountain here has found a way past one Haas. He needs to try and do the same with the other one. Only 2/10 behind TK right now, and TK 12 seconds behind Lukey. Again, Lukey putting in a solid display here. At the moment, he's going to score some good points. We're over halfway through the race, and that's rain, Jono. It's starting to rain.
Yeah, I thought I saw a few drops just a minute or so before, but I wasn't too sure. But yeah, it's starting to fall, and we're on lap 19 of the race. So as you say, still a long, long way to go yet. So yeah, those raindrops for the drivers probably come a little bit earlier than a lot of them were hoping for.
Yeah, absolutely. But well, they'll be focusing now on where the driest part of the track is. Starting to spice things up, and I suppose I've said this once, I've said this twice, I've said this many times this season. I'll bet Marley just wanted an easy race towards the checkered flag. 14.9 seconds, but he's going to have to take a risk here. Does he see how the track develops and pit in on the intermediate tyres? And if he does, he's got no one else around him, no one else to gauge the reaction of when the DRS is disabled or when the track is good enough to go onto those intermediates. He has to make this decision himself. He can't follow anyone else.
No, he can't. Obviously, as a race leader, you always just want it to be a simple race. But he has got that 15-second buffer, so he's probably working at bringing that gap up all the time, because it gives him a buffer. Even if he gets it wrong by a lap, unless he makes a mistake and hits the wall, he will still have that buffer, and he may well need it. We'll wait and see. But the likes of Scorpion and Sam and a lot of these drivers now, they'll be looking at this window, waiting for the rain to fall and thinking this will be their chance to go straight onto the intermediate tyres in a few laps' time.
White Fountain on the stream, making the move on TK, going into turn number 7, and he's finally passed the two Haases. 13.2 separates himself and Lukey. And I tell you what, Scorpion has been waiting for this rain for such a long time. He's taken those ultra soft tyres 17 laps so far, but he's now under huge pressure from Lukey. And already, look at that, 3.2 seconds behind Samster. He is just wanting this track to get wet enough so he can put some intermediate tyres on at least.
Yeah, this is a horrible time for Scorpion at the moment, because he's now pretty slow on those, far past their best ultra softs, but he'll be desperate to try and get to switch straight to the intermediates. But we could still be several laps away yet, and he'll be absolutely willing the rain to fall harder. But all the time, obviously, his race is being hurt by driving around on those worn tyres.
Well, Marley still leads the way, 15.7. He's actually pulling away from Brumadinho, and I reckon in his first race, Brumadinho is just trying to take it easy. Not many drivers can say on their debut they had podiums. I certainly can't say that, Jono.
No, it would be fantastic for him, wouldn't it? And as Lukey there goes down the inside of Scorpion, so yeah, Scorpion really struggling now, and Lukey makes his way through into 6th.
Yeah. Well, it was a little bit of contact on the entry there. I just cut onto the stream as the move was taking place. But, Lukey gets the move done. And Scorpion on those warm tyres. 18 laps he's done now as the two Haas teammates swap positions. So Joe is once again ahead of TK. Lap 20 of the Singapore Grand Prix. Marley leads.
Yeah, and Scorpion losing the rear of the car there. Those tyres are absolutely gone, and in these wet conditions, the tyre temperatures you'll really struggle with as well, and Lukey just cruising away. But what to do for Scorpion, who really, you can't really pit now for dry tyres with the rain falling. You've just got to hang on and hope that the switch comes. But it's still just spitting with it at the moment, and no sign of actual rain, landing and staying on the track.
Well, Marley here with 11 laps to go. As you can see, 4.3 seconds off his best lap time. So that just shows you how this track is devolving, if I like to use that word, and how wet the track is actually getting. Still not wet enough for those intermediate tyres, but who is going to be the first to blink? If anyone does blink, of course.
Yeah, wait and see. In the meantime, Marley is still pulling out that gap all the time. So he's not miles away from having a pit stop in hand, is he? So looking very, very strong, even with the conditions changing. So as White Fountain is into the pit lane then, so will he be the first to switch on to the intermediates? It looks like he will be. And I see another team, the Haas team, also waiting with a set of intermediate tyres. One of their drivers. So
White Fountain and TK taking the plunge then. They're going on to the intermediates. And I think they're in that situation and that scenario where they think, well, we've got nothing else to lose. We might as well see if we're going to be right.
Yeah, definitely. If you're towards the lower end of the field, I guess you're more likely to take a punt, aren't you, and go for it. So we'll keep an eye now on how they get on, and so will all the other drivers as well. And we'll see. We're getting near the switch for sure, but DRS still enabled. So perhaps these might be blinking a little bit too early. I guess we'll find out shortly.
Well, Marley there trying to tiptoe his way through the final couple of corners, and he thought about coming into the pits, but remember, it's a long lap here at Singapore, and the DRS could be disabled at any point. A bit like the Belgian Grand Prix, you've just got to be brave and come in when you think it is time to switch over, as Marley picks himself up a 3-second time penalty. I don't think he'll be too concerned about that right about now.
No, I don't think he'll be worried about that too much. Just keep an eye on that gap, and TK is falling back a couple of tenths consistently from Jaw at the moment. So while the Inter's you're not just sliding off the road, they've got a bit of grip. They aren't quite as quick as the dry tyres at this very moment.
Absolutely. Well, Marley's still trying to tiptoe his way around, and Scorpion is now into the pits. Oh, as Jaw runs very wide and has to miss out turn 21 then, as Jaw now comes into the pits, presumably for those intermediate tyres, and Scorpion probably yelling over his team radio, please, please let me pit.
Yeah, don't blame him for pitting. He went that extra lap, didn't he, than TK and White Fountain, but he'll rejoin now on those inters, and yeah, probably breathing a sigh of relief that finally he's got a fresh set of rubber on, even if it is going back out on the wet track.
Let's keep an eye on these times then, with TK and White Fountain. They seem to have less grip coming through the final two corners. They're definitely not taking them flat out. As well, 34.5 is a bit harsh considering they had a pit stop there. But as they head through turns 1, 2 and 3, you can see that's Jaw who rejoins ahead of the both of them there. So that's not a great sign for those two. But Jaw now rejoining Scorpion as well. It's all about getting these tyres up to temperature. As well as that, if you pit too early for those intermediate tyres and there's not enough water on the track, as DRS is disabled. So there you go then, Scorpion, Jaw, TK and White Fountain, technically, according to the virtual stewards, should have the advantage. But guess who's missed the pit lane? And guess who had that message come up just after he passed the pit lane entrance? It couldn't have happened to anyone else other than Marley, because here comes Brumadinho into the pits, and here comes Pete now into the pits as well. Oh, that's a disaster for Marley here. It's got 19-second gap, and I wonder what that's going to be towards the end of his stint. He'll be absolutely furious.
Yeah, it'll be so frustrated. You know, we always say anything can happen in F1. You can have all the pace in the world, but you do rely on the racing gods as well to shine down on you sometimes. And,
Matt FNG,
just past the pit lane at that moment.
Matt FNG, for a second there, it came up with ultra soft tyres, and I thought, you've got to be kidding me. And then quickly switched back to the intermediate tyres. But yeah, the only one on dry tyres now is Marley. And with not many laps to go, he's going to be closed in very, very rapidly.
Yeah, and I'm on board with him now, and he's understeering. Oh, and he's losing the rear as well. It is well past time to change. He's really, really struggling, but he's got that buffer. He has got to just sacrifice the lap time now, get back to the pits without wing damage. Absolutely crucially, you see, he just cannot put the power down at all, and his heart will be in his mouth for this final sector of the lap. He's got to bring it back, and he'll be so thankful if he does, that he had that nearly 20-second buffer from the rest of the field. It certainly won't be that when he rejoins.
No, absolutely not. As you can see, the gap is closing rapidly as well, as Marley is just trying to tiptoe his way around. When it's like these conditions, it's the longest lap in the world. And here he comes then towards 18 and 19 now. As you can see, there's just no grip. He has a little bit more grip going into turn 19, of course, because it is a covered section of the track. But even then, the tyres are soaking wet and they're not going to put down the grip you expect. Such a long lap for Marley, but he's finally made his way back to the pit lane. The gap is 39.6. Now, if any luck, Marley will rejoin, but his lead at the top will be severely dented there.
Yeah, and he actually did a really good job there to bring that back to the pits without any damage. He kept his cool. It'd be easy just to be frustrated there and to lose the car, but he was very, very cautious. And yeah, I think he did a good job there to bring it back in one piece. So finally, he's got those intermediate tyres on, so he'll rejoin. I think he'll still be in the lead, but as you mentioned, his gap will be, his lead will be drastically reduced.
Before the DRS was disabled, he had a 19-second lead, almost 20-second lead at the top there, as Marley now rejoins onto the track. And you can see now that gap is now down to 8.3. Will it decrease any further? Yep, 6.7. And of course, this isn't relative. This is just the mini sectors. So now Marley, at this point for Brumadinho, will have got up to a little bit more pace. But of course, you do need a couple of corners here to warm up those tyres. And yep, the gap has now stabilised at around about 6 seconds. So on that lap, he lost 13 seconds. It's good that he had a good enough lead. Meanwhile, then, White Fountain putting some pressure on Jura as they head towards 21 and 22. And with the rain like this, Jono, now this rain with the lap times could push the total race time to near an hour, maybe even beyond that.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see the lap times drop off now, and especially if, as we expect, the rain will get heavier and heavier from here on into the end. Yeah, the drivers will be they will be in desperate need of a break come the end of this race, that's for sure, especially with the added concentration needed now in these wet conditions.
White Fountain still putting that pressure on Jura. Of course, no DRS now. This is classic slipstream as we head down towards turn 7. Then the Sauber has the inside line, but he'll have the outside line going towards turn 8. And the Haas there of Jura will have the inside line, and they make a little bit of contact there. White Fountain has then the inside line for turn 9, but they make contact again as they head their way through. Calm down, guys. There's still a long way to go in this one. White Fountain has the position, though.
Yeah, White Fountain does get the position, but that turn 8 always seems to be a point where cars come together, always has been. But they both make it around without any damage, I believe. But once again, we see the Haas drivers as well, line astern. So often we see the teammates, really close on track. There's very little between them on pace, I don't think.
Well, I'm surprised Samster isn't in a fit of rage right now, because after all that stopping, and after all that, Scorpion has rejoined ahead of Samster. And I bet Samster's going to be over the moon with that one.
Yeah, look at him tucked up behind Scorpion as well. He's going to be so desperate to get by now. And I think he'd have backed himself when he was on the soft versus the worn ultra soft for Scorpion. He'd have backed himself to come out of that situation ahead once the pit stops have been completed. But yeah, not the case. So once again, Scorpion doing a good job who keeps Sam behind him, and yeah, Sam will feel like he's been tucked up behind with Toro Rosso forever.
Well, of course, Scorpion was helped out there because the Ferraris had to double stack, of course. They pitted on the same lap when they were changing over to the intermediate, so that would have helped him to no end, and it would have put Samster and lost him even more time. But Samster here is not willing to give up lying down here. He's currently in 7th place, which is, as I see it, is 8 points. So as it stands, the championship lead goes up to 99 points. Not over yet, of course.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good situation for Sam, I guess, if he thinks about the long game, as he gets a good run on Scorpion. Scorpion thinks about defending to the inside, but Sam's already too far alongside, and he's going to get the braking on the inside, but it becomes the outside for the next corner, of course, and this is going to get all a little bit tight, and once again, Sam has to back out of it, and Scorpion survives for a little bit longer in that 6th place.
Yeah, he tries to defend that inside line going into turn 13. And Pete there picking up a 5-second stop go for exceeding track limits. And that is a severe one. Oh, a little bit of a touch there from Samster onto Scorpion. Backs out of the acceleration point to make sure he doesn't gain an advantage. So respect there between the two drivers. It's tough but fair.
Yeah, and look at the rain, Kieran. I'm on board with Sam, and that rain is now bouncing off the cockpit of that Ferrari. The rain is getting heavier and heavier, and we've still got, enough laps to go yet to make things very, very tricky for the drivers.
Yeah, we've got 6 laps to go still. 5.5 if you're picky, if you're riding on board with Marley. But yeah, we've still got at least 5 laps to go. That's still enough time to put on a set of wet tyres if the drivers feel like it. Of course, the switchover points, the intermediates to the wet, isn't that simple. You don't get the help of that DRS disabled message. It is entirely your own call.
Yeah, it is. And I think at the rate it's increasing here, the rain, I think we could well see drivers having to switch to the full wet. With it being such a long lap here as well, you just can't afford to do 3 or 4 laps on the wrong tyre, on the intermediate tyre. If it is full wet conditions, you'll lose too much lap time. So all these drivers at the moment will be, just playing it corner by corner and trying to judge what to do. As Sam has another look at Scorpion, so he's got his mind full with strategy and with trying to make his way by.
Yeah, he's really putting the Toro Rosso under pressure, but the Toro Rosso, like the track, is withstanding that pressure. But you can see there a little bit of a slide out of turn 9. That's going to open up the opportunity for Samson to try and get by as we head towards the old Singapore sling. And there's contact between the two of them. Bit of front wing to rear tyre for Scorpion. The rear end went away, but Scorpion was able to catch it. Samson then up to P6.
Yeah, and I think Sam not to blame there. He did leave enough space, but Scorpion did just snatch the brake a little bit and just made very slight contact with Sam. But yeah, Sam able to continue unaffected. So finally, he's made his way through. And ahead of him now, you'll see is Lukey, but that's a big, big gap to try and bridge with not many laps remaining. As he picks up another time penalty as well. I believe that's 2 time penalties he's got for multiple cuts, Sam, as well. So as it stands, Scorpion may still be within a chance of getting that position back, even if he finishes behind Sam.
Yeah, that was Scorpion trying to just race as hard as he possibly could, but it just didn't work out for him. And I'll tell you what though, Jono, although the rain's falling down harder, I'm not seeing much standing water out there. That's the real clue that it's time for wet tyres. No puddles out on track yet.
Yeah, no puddles. The lap times are dropping away, but it's also able to keep some heat in these intermediate tyres, and as you say, as long as there's no standing water, they will be able to continue. So we will keep an eye on how everyone gets on. Everyone keeping it remarkably clean and tidy at the moment in these obviously treacherous and horrible conditions for the drivers. Yeah,
absolutely. With Pete there now being reeled in by Matt F&G. We haven't said that before this race, Jono. Absolutely not. But with Pete, with that 5-second stop-go penalty, that's going to be added to the end of his race here. If Matt plays his cards right and hasn't got any penalties, 3rd place could be his.
Yeah, despite, as you say, looking at the back of that McLaren for large portions of the race, he could well get the position given to him at the end. So yeah, either way, Pete's going to lose. It'll either be added at the end, or if they do have to switch to the full wets, of course, he'd then be in the pits and having to serve it at the pit stop. So either way, if Matt F&G can keep it within that 5 seconds, he will end up on the podium at the end.
As it stands then, with Samster in 6th place, the gap between himself and Donkul will extend to 3 figures, 100 points exactly.
Wow, and that's yeah, pretty impressive from Sam, you'd have to say, if he can get it to that, and pretty nice to end up on that round 100 point mark as well.
Yeah, and after this race, of course, there'll be 6 races to go, with round 16 coming up. And, well, all Samster will have to do, if he finishes in this position at the next race, is outscore Donkul. That's all he has to do.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be within his grasp, won't it? I think for the first time we know he's been playing it down and saying he's going to carry on fighting until the end. But yeah, if it gets to that stage where you know you're a race away, you can't help but think, wow, it's in my grasp. And will Sam rise to the occasion, or will the pressure get too much for him? Well, we'll have to wait and see.
Well, Scorpion's into the pits then, and I wonder, with 4 laps to go, if this is his opportunity to go onto the wet tyres and see what he can do. And yes, it is. He goes on to the wet tyres. So keep an eye on him then. He might rejoin in front of TK and Jaw as they're battling away. But no, Jaw is into the pits now on the wet tyres. And the Haas boys are really confirming that they're battling with Scorpion to the end of the race.
Yeah, absolutely. So TK's continued. Jaw's decided to pit for those wet tyres as well. not surprised to see Jaw do that as he's towards the back, but Scorpion, it's cost him a few positions at the moment, so he'll be hoping now that the rain really, really comes down and forces everyone into the pits as well, so that he can take advantage of being on that wet tyre.
Well, the car ahead of him is TK. 3 seconds is the gap. Now TK is on a set of intermediate tyres, so we'll see how that gap develops then. As you can see, Scorpion losing that back end there. That was very scary, but the rain is starting to settle onto the track, and this is the big call then for Scorpion, as he is closing in that gap bit by bit. So it might be the right call, but I don't know. If the rain gets heavier, it's going to be a fantastic call towards the end of the race, because now with only 3 laps to go, as Marley starts lap 29, the pressure's on him. He's got a 15.8 second lead. He seems comfortable, but if the rain gets any heavier, he'll have to nurse that car back, because there's got to be a certain point, Jono, where you think there's no point coming in for a set of wet tyres. You're going to lose more time than you gain.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, can't blame these guys for making the switch. But unless it becomes undrivable on the intermediates, then they're just not going to gain that time back, are they, in just a couple of laps? Marley, he's built that gap up again, hasn't he? From I think 9 to 6, wasn't it, when he rejoined on the inters? He's got back to 16, so he's pulled 10 seconds on P2 there. So he will certainly be hoping now that he can nurse those intermediates to the end.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Jono, but is this the first time we've seen wet tyres in a race this season in the Pinnacle tier?
I think so. Yeah,
well, there you go then.
Is.
We definitely saw them in qualifying at the British Grand Prix for sure, but not in the race. That was only in qualifying. But you can see Scorpion here getting the better traction. And yeah, I think it is time for those wet tyres, because look how much TK is struggling to even get the power down, and Scorpion is able to get it down much, much easier. We now head through turn 5 on board with Scorpion, and again, TK loses the back end. Scorpion has to react, and you can see the better drive coming out of turn 5, flying through turn 6, still full throttle through turn 6 as we make our way down towards turn 7. The Haas wants to go up the inside, but in the end I don't think he battled too hard for that position. Scorpion now up to 8th place. 15.6 separates himself from White Fountain with only about 2.5 laps to go. It's going to be tough to close that gap, that much of a gap as well.
Yeah, it is. He's got to streak away from TK, who had no chance on the brakes there versus Scorpion on those wet tyres. He had to give that one up. So the Haas is resuming 9th and 10th. So Scorpion will see that gap fall, you'd imagine. But 15 seconds, as we said, unless it becomes undrivable on the inters, that's as far as he's going to go.
2 laps to go then, and Brumadinho here is under immense pressure from Pete and Matt FNG. Matt FNG wanting to prove himself to Odems, and Pete here was hoping for a good result. He's currently in 3rd place, but he does have that 5-second stop go that he hasn't served. So Brumadinho here will just be trying to hold on to 2nd place. Not bad for a debut placing, even if he finishes in the top 4.
Yeah, definitely. He'll be, definitely hoping to keep these guys behind. He's going to come under quite a bit of pressure now, it looks like. So we'll see how he handles it. First time out in this league, will he be able to keep Pete behind? And will Pete be able to bring it home in a decent position as well? We know he's had so much bad luck this season. He mentioned it in the YouTube chat as well earlier on. So he's desperate now. Seeing lap 30 or 31 at Singapore, and the end is finally within sight.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've no idea what the running time has been so far, but we'll have a look at the end here. Samster is right on the back of Lukey. He wants another position, and he wants to make sure he gets this job done by the next Grand Prix, which of course is the Russian Grand Prix. And I'll tell you what, he's putting a good stead so far, and having to try and get as many points as possible. This hasn't been Samster's greatest race of all time, but I tell you what, he's getting the job done so far.
Yeah, they always say you can't win them all, and it is true. But you've got to just take the points where you can and when they come. And Sam trying to do that, going around the outside of Lukey here, and he's going to get better traction from the outside line. And Lukey, will he try and attack back? No, he doesn't. He has to slot back in behind Sam. So good move there by Sam to take the outer line in these wet conditions. Got him better exit from the corner. And Lukey has to give that position up and, falls to P6. But I think Lukey will still be pretty pleased. with that if he can finish there.
Well, Marley has started the final lap of the Singapore Grand Prix. It's a real test of endurance and concentration, and it doesn't really help. I think the rain has actually eased off as well, so Scorpion and Jaw might have a tough time on those wet tyres towards the end of this race. They've got good gaps, though. Scorpion has at least towards TK 6.7, and the track might have enough water just to get him to the end of this race. But, well, Marley, before this race, only scored 6 points in this season. He might just be about scoring 25 points, but there's still half a lap to go as we head towards the old Singapore sling, and now coming up towards turn 11. What a fantastic result this would be for Renault. They've got Marley in first place, Lukey in P6. It'll be a fantastic points haul for Renault then, as they look to try and get up from 7th place. They're 28 points behind Haas, and I tell you what, a win and a 6th place will jump them ahead of the Haas team for sure. So if they get this result and they seal it, it's going to be 6th place at the moment as they head towards the Russian Grand Prix. And as Marley then makes his way towards turn 17, you can see there the back end wanting to step out. Now coming through turn 18, not long to go now as we head towards turns 19 and 20 in this 90-degree section. It's all about the mechanical grip now. It's all about not spinning up the tyres as he makes his way now towards turns 20 and 21. Taps the wall for good measure, but makes his way around the final 2 corners. And he's going to take his first race win of the season. Marley for Renault wins in Singapore. What a fantastic result for Marley then. Brumadinho here. We're jumping on board for the battle for 2nd place. Penalties will be applied here by the game as we make our way towards the final 2 corners. But the question is, where are these 3 going to finish as they cross the line then? The Force India will cross the line in 2nd place. Will he finish in 2nd place? Yes, he will! Brumadinho on his debut here in One Hub in the Pinnacle tier grabs 2nd place. Matt FNG on the podium after his win in Italy, and Pete there in 4th place. Good result for him. Lukey up to P5 and Samster drops to P6 in penalties. So that means Renault will absolutely jump Haas then in the constructor standings. White Fountain sliding his way across the line. He comes across the line in 7th place then. Scorpion, who's on the wet tyres, and as you can see, started to drop away from White Fountain towards the end of this race as the lack of water on the track then, as the rain eased off towards the end there. But Scorpion comes across the line. He loses it, but he just about crosses the line then. So he's going to get 8th place there. TK in the Haas will pass him then, but it will stay 9th place. And Jaw on the wet tyres, as you can see, just not enough water on the track to give those wet tyres and their temperature in check, but he makes his way around the final corner. He will be grabbing those final point there. But your race winner here at Singapore, his first in the Pinnacle tier, Marley wins the Singapore Grand Prix.
Yeah, and brilliant drive by Marley, wasn't it? Almost the perfect drive. He went that extra lap on the dry tyres, of course, but really of no fault of his own because of just how the DRS being switched off, how that fell for him. So basically built up that 20-second gap twice in this race, so he had really dominant pace in the wet and the dry. And like I said before, he came into this tier with a good reputation and taken in a couple of races, but he's delivered here today with his debut victory.
I'll tell you what, as it's being mentioned in the chat, maybe Bermadinha there is following in some good footsteps there, because a certain Jono got a podium on his debut. So Brumadinha there following maybe in some similar footsteps. But your official, unofficial results there. Marley taking the race win with Brumadinho in 2nd, Matt FNG in 3rd, Pete in 4th, Lukey jumping up to 5th there after Samster's penalties, which drop him down to 6th. White Fountain in 7th, Scorpion in 8th, TK in 9th, Jaw is in 10th. And your non-finishers, Farth, St Johnston, Donkel and Chopper. And with Samster scoring 8 points, it extends that lead in the championship to, I believe, 100 points exactly. So all Samster has to do at Russia is outscore Donkel. That is all he needs to do. 125 points left to score, of course.
Yeah, I think we're in for a treat at Russia. Donkel, he's got to bounce back, hasn't he? He's got to bounce back. We know the pace he's got. He's just got to win the race. Nothing else for it. So I expect to see an epic battle between those two. And yeah, shout out for Brumadinho on his debut as well, debut podium, and he had no penalties as well. One of only 2 finishers to have no penalties. So fantastic drive for him on his debut race.
Yeah, absolutely, and a long period of running there, and some of the drivers I think will be glad that race is over, but it was a good race all round from everybody there. We had those retirements, of course, Donkor retiring, and that really hands Samster the momentum he needs to maybe come across the line here. And I'm just trying to have a look back at the stream here to see how long that running time actually was, and it was 56 minutes of the Singapore Grand Prix. 56 minutes. If you stick around for the whole thing, congratulations. That was one epic race.
Yeah, it was indeed. Just short of the hour mark. So yeah, we're like 10 minutes or so above our normal race time, and that is a long time to focus behind the wheel of one of these cars. And so yeah, I think Singapore always sits amongst those tracks. You know, you're just delighted when you get the win. I'm sure Lally, if he's going to win, this will be one of the tracks he'd be delighted to get the win at. You put so much effort in, so to come out on top, you know, he'll be feeling absolutely great. And moving on to Russia, expect to see him battling at the front of the field again.
Yeah, absolutely. And Russian Grand Prix, well, some of the drivers not a fan of it, but I tell you what, just be careful going through turn 1. Try not to go 4 wide at the first turn.
Yeah.
Because it's technically not a braking zone.
Absolutely. Even we've seen incidents on the way to turn 1, the kink on the way down. So yeah, the first couple of corners at Russia, we've seen so many incidents in the past. And as you mentioned, perhaps not a favourite circuit of the drivers, but we've got those 2 epic straights, so we get lots of slipstream, lots of overtaking, so and obviously a championship perhaps to be decided. So I'm sure it will deliver us a good race.
Absolutely. Well, that does it then for the Pinnacle tier stream. Make sure you tune in now to the Prestige tier, where they're just coming towards the end of qualifying, I do believe. Make sure you tune in next week, though, to the Pinnacle tier, where we'll see if Samster is able to outscore Donkor, and that'll only mean one thing, Jono. That's the only thing he'll be looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hope we get an epic battle between those two. I think that Donkor won't give it up easily. He'll be bouncing back, I'm sure, and cannot wait.
Well, you can catch all of the tiers next week on the 15th of February. Make sure you do subscribe to One Hub Racing as well. Make sure you hit the bell so you get notified every time we go live. And make sure you follow and keep in touch with your favourite tiers on onehubracing.com. You can also find all of the forums there, all of the pre-race interviews and whatnot. And you can also have a look at the calendar to see when the next races are. Well, Jono, it's been fantastic as always working with you, and I'm really glad you put up with me for however long the race was, 56 minutes. It's not an easy job.
Yeah, we made it through, didn't we? So if we can make it through the Singapore Grand Prix, we can make it through anything.
A strong bond has been formed. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. Please make sure you head your way to the Prestige tier now. I've been Kieran McGinley.
And I've been John Worth.
Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.